The first time I saw her, she was standing in the middle of the battlefield, unarmed, unflinching, and covered in the ash of 2 burning worlds. They called her Xyra of the Ketheri Dominion, commander, tactician, and the woman who brought down the human colony of Trident 4 in less than a day. She was the kind of legend used to terrify new recruits, the one whose name was spoken like a curse. And yet, as I stood before her in that ruin, my pulse barely moved. "Human," she said, her voice distorted by the rebreather mask built into her helmet. "You should be trembling." "I'm not," I replied quietly, resting my rifle against my shoulder. "Should I be?" Her head tilted, curious, like a predator trying to decide whether its prey was suicidal or stupid. Behind her, her soldiers, scaled, silver-eyed warriors of the Ketheri, surrounded what was left of my unit. The air stank of ozone and melted steel. I was the only one left standing, a medic from a human fleet who had been dragged to the front lines to patch up the dying. "You have seen your world burn," Xyra said. "You have seen your comrades fall. Yet you speak to me without fear." I met her gaze, though I couldn't see her eyes through the dark visor. "I'm not afraid of things that bleed." For a moment, silence stretched between us. Then, softly, she laughed a low, broken sound, almost human. "Middle. They didn't execute me. That surprised me more than anything. Instead, they took me to their flagship, the Sovereign's Will, a massive vessel built from black alloy and pulsing with eerie blue veins of energy. They said I was a guest. I knew what that meant. A prisoner worth studying. Days passed. I was questioned, tested, observed. And then, without warning, she appeared again. Xyra. This time, without her helmet. Her face was sharp and beautiful in a way that made me uncomfortable, not because of attraction, but because she looked alive. Too alive. Her skin shimmered faintly, like starlight caught in motion. Her eyes, silver and violet, studied me with something that wasn't cruelty. It was curiosity. "You are different," she said one evening, circling me like a scientist examining an anomaly. "Most humans we capture beg or break. You do neither." "I've already lost everything worth begging for," I said, leaning back against the cold wall of my cell. "And I don't break easy." She frowned. "That is not strength. That is emptiness." "Maybe," I admitted. "But emptiness can't be used against me." Xyra stopped walking. She turned toward the viewport, the stars spilling across her reflection like glitter. "Do you know what fear is, human?" "Of course." "Then why do you lack it?" I hesitated. For the first time, her voice didn't sound like a command. It sounded tired. I told her the truth. When you've held a dying friend's hand, and they ask if they'll see home again, and you lie to them so they'll die smiling, fear stops meaning much. Her breath caught. Her head turned slowly toward me. "You have seen death, and you still stand." "Because if I fall," I said quietly, "they die for nothing." For a long while, she said nothing. Then, almost whispering, "My people, we do not speak of the dead. We erase them. To remember is to weaken." "Then you've already lost," I said softly. "Because forgetting them doesn't make you strong. It makes you hollow." She didn't respond. But the next day, my cell door opened, and I found myself walking free aboard her ship. Over the weeks that followed, I became something of an anomaly among the Ketheri. A human who didn't flinch, didn't bow, didn't fear. Some of them mocked me. Some whispered I was dangerous. But Xyra, she stayed close. She watched me repair their medical scanners, recalibrate their ship's life support systems, treat their wounded. The Ketheri medics were advanced, but they had no compassion. They treated flesh like broken machinery. One day, I found her in the medical bay, slumped against a console, her hand clutching her side. "You're bleeding," I said, kneeling beside her. "It is nothing," she hissed, but when I pressed my hand against her wound, she winced, and for a moment, she looked afraid. "Hold still," I said, activating my field kit. "Why help me?" she demanded, her voice trembling now. "I am your captor." I met her gaze, the silver of her eyes reflecting my human brown. "Because you're bleeding," I said simply. She looked at me as if I had spoken an alien tongue. "You should hate me." "I probably should," I admitted. "But I don't." When I finished closing the wound, she caught my wrist, her fingers cold but trembling. "You are not like the others," she said, her voice quiet, breaking around the edges. "I get that a lot." That night, she didn't leave the med bay. She stayed sitting beside me as I worked, her eyes following my hands like she was memorizing something she'd forgotten. And when I asked why, she said something I didn't expect. "I have commanded armies," she murmured. "I have conquered worlds. But I have never felt small until you spoke to me." Climax. 2 weeks later, the war reached its breaking point. The human fleet launched a desperate assault, a suicide push against the Dominion stronghold. The Sovereign's will was in the direct line of fire. Explosions rocked the corridors. The air reeked of plasma and burning metal. Alarms howled like dying beasts. Xyra stood on the command bridge, issuing orders in a voice that shook the deck. "Divert power to the shields. Evacuate sectors 5 through 9. When she saw me enter, her eyes widened. "You should not be here." "Neither should you," I shot back. "Your side's losing." Her jaw tightened. "We never lose." I stepped closer, gripping her arm. "You will if you don't run." The ship shuddered violently, a direct hit. The viewport cracked. Flames licked across the bridge. Her second-in-command shouted something in Ketheri, but Xyra silenced her with a single gesture. Then she turned to me, eyes burning. "You would have me flee my own ship? I would have you live," I said. "There's a difference." For the first time, she hesitated. And that's when it happened, the blast. A human torpedo hit the hull directly below the bridge. The deck tore apart. I was thrown to the floor. Xyra fell hard, debris collapsing around her. I crawled toward her, through fire and smoke, until I reached her side. She was pinned, trapped beneath a support beam, her breath coming shallow and quick. "Leave me," she gasped. "Not a chance. You'll die here." I've heard that before. I tried lifting the beam, my muscles screaming, but it wouldn't budge. She grabbed my wrist the same way she had before. Her fingers trembled against my skin. "Why are you not afraid?" she whispered, her voice breaking through the chaos. "Every other being in this galaxy fears death. Even I do. But you..." Her words faded as she coughed blood, and I told her the truth. "I'm not afraid," I said, straining against the metal. "Because fear doesn't save anyone, but love might." For a moment, she stopped breathing. Her eyes widened, shimmering. "Love. I don't mean romance," I said, pressing my shoulder under the beam. "I mean the kind that makes you risk yourself for someone else, even when you shouldn't." There was silence. Then, softly, I heard her whisper, "No one has ever said that word to me." The beam finally shifted, just enough for her to pull free. I caught her as she collapsed into my arms. We escaped through the emergency shaft, flames chasing our heels. When we reached the escape pods, she turned to me. "Come with me," she said quietly. "I can't," I replied. "If I go with you, my people will think I've betrayed them. But if I stay, maybe I can stop them from firing again." She stared at me, unblinking. Her lower lip trembled, a rare, Fragile thing for a warrior queen. You would face your death for me? Yeah, I said. Guess I'm not that smart. Then, without her helmet, without her armor, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to mine. Your courage shames me, she whispered, and your heart terrifies me. Ending. I don't remember much after that. Just light and silence. When I woke, I was in a medical bay. Human voices. White light. The war was over. They said the Sovereign's will was destroyed, but some escape pods were found drifting beyond the nebula. They never confirmed who was inside. Years passed. Peace, or something like it, settled across the stars. Humanity rebuilt. And yet, sometimes, when I walk beneath the night sky, I still think of her, of that strange silver light in her eyes, the way her voice broke when she whispered love. Last night, I found a signal on my comm, an encrypted transmission bouncing off old Dominion frequencies. It was short, faint, distorted, but I know her voice. Human, you said you feared nothing. But tell me, do you still fear never seeing me again? My breath caught, and for the first time in years I was afraid.